The world stopped when my grandmother, bless her stubborn 87-year-old heart, clutched her chest and slid to the polished hardwood floor like a puppet with cut strings. I was instantly deaf to everything but the blood pounding in my ears and the frantic, echoing call I made to 911, screaming her address into the humid suburban air. "What are you doing? Are you seriously this selfish?" That was the scream I never thought I'd have to use, directed not at the fading life in my living room, but at the perfect, entitled nightmare next door. Meredith, or Karen, as the neighborhood secretly dubbed her, lived for two things: her impeccably edged zoysia lawn and enforcing homeowners association rules that existed only in her imagination. Our houses share a long, narrow drive that curls up from the street, and there, in a perfect act of malice only moments after I'd heard the siren approaching, Meredith's brand-new, oversized white SUV sat, diagonally blocking the entire throat of my driveway. The siren's wail, which had promised rescue and relief, now felt trapped, a desperate animal circling the block. My stomach dropped right out of my body. "No, no, no," I breathed, running out onto the porch, the metallic scent of a recent shower still clinging to my skin, contrasting sickeningly with the dread flooding my senses. The ambulance, painted in its bright, urgent white and orange, had stopped short. Two paramedics, a tall, serious man named Mike and a brisk, efficient woman with dark braids named Sarah, were already leaping out, trauma bags in hand. They saw the obstruction immediately. "Ma'am, we need to get through," Mike called, already moving toward the back of the ambulance to grab the gurney. But before he could take 2 steps, Meredith stepped out from behind her SUV, adjusting the visor of her oversized sunglasses. She looked completely unbothered, like she was waiting for a valet. "You can wait," she stated, her voice as sharp and flat as a newly sharpened spade. "This is my property line. You're idling on my curb. I have had an issue with your overflow parking for months, and I won't have your emergency vehicle tearing up my freshly laid sod while I'm waiting for my private gardening crew." I felt the blood rush to my face. My grandmother was inside, maybe dying, and this woman was talking about sod? "Meredith, are you insane? That's an ambulance. My grandmother is having a cardiac event," I yelled, gesturing wildly toward the house. She lifted a perfectly manicured hand. "That is not my problem. You should have timed your grandmother's little episode better. Move the vehicle, or I call the police for trespassing and property damage." Can you believe this absolute monster? The words hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. Sarah, the female paramedic, looked from me to Meredith, and I saw a flicker of disbelief and then pure, cold professional rage settle in her eyes. She put a hand on Mike's arm, calming him as he visibly bristled. The seconds stretching between us were agonizing. Each one felt like a minute of my grandmother's life being stolen. I could almost hear the quiet, labored breathing of my Nana from the living room. "Ma'am, we are responding to a life-threatening emergency," Sarah said, her voice dangerously calm, stepping forward. "We have the legal right to ingress and egress. We need you to move your vehicle immediately." Meredith sniffed, adjusting her cashmere cardigan. "No, I don't think I will. You can go around the long way. It only adds 10 minutes. She actually smiled, a tight, victorious little grimace. 10 minutes. That was an eternity. My knees started to shake with helplessness. I threw my hands up in despair. My God, is this really happening? Is this how she wins? Mike exchanged a look with Sarah, a look that conveyed a world of shared frustration and duty. Then, Mike dropped his trauma bag right on the asphalt. He strode to the driver's side of the ambulance, but instead of trying to inch past or call the police, he stopped. He looked straight past Meredith, whose face was already softening in anticipation of her victory, and focused on the massive, sloping expanse of her prized lawn. The lawn. Oh, how she loved that lawn. She used to water it 3 times a day, yelling at kids who dared to ride bikes within a block of its perfect, bright green boundary. It wasn't just grass. It was her trophy, her identity. Mike took a deep, deliberate breath, a long, audible huff of resignation and determination. Then he got back into the ambulance. Before Meredith could even ask, "What is he doing?" the engine revved, a deep, mechanical growl that usually signaled the beginning of a journey, not a confrontation. I watched, my mouth hanging open, as Mike gripped the steering wheel, slowly angling the massive front of the ambulance away from my blocked driveway and directly toward the edge of Meredith's award-winning Zoysia. Meredith's sunglasses nearly flew off her face as she shrieked, "No! Stop it! You cannot! This is private property!" The first sound was a sickening, moist crunch as the heavy-duty tires rolled over the meticulously maintained border edge, tearing up the perfect, soft earth. It was followed by the low, grating rumble of the massive vehicle climbing the gentle slope of her lawn. I could smell the disturbed, freshly fertilized dirt instantly, an earthy, vital scent mixed with the metallic exhaust of the idling engine. Sarah, now holding her trauma bag ready, marched swiftly alongside the ambulance as it plowed a perfect, deeply rutted, 4-foot-wide path straight across the middle of Meredith's green masterpiece. The vehicle didn't just drive over it. It was obliterating it, leaving tire tracks so deep they looked like irrigation trenches. Meredith was screaming, flailing her arms, practically dancing a frantic jig of fury on the driveway. "I'm calling the police. I'm suing you. I'm suing the city. You are ruining everything I have worked for." "Go ahead and call ma'am," Mike called back calmly, maneuvering the ambulance with practiced skill, bringing it right up to my front door. He didn't even slow down as he passed the bumper of her obstructing SUV. "But right now, I have a patient dying inside." In that moment, the confrontation melted away. The injustice of Meredith's actions, the shock of the paramedics' countermove, it all became background noise. Mike and Sarah were instantly professional, disappearing into the house. I rushed in after them, leaving Meredith to scream uselessly at the deep gashes now traversing her beloved turf. Hours later, Nana was stable at the hospital, her frail hand finally squeezing mine. The crisis was averted. Back at the house, the scene was quiet, but the proof of the battle remained. The deep, dark ruts across Meredith's lawn looked like massive, permanent scars. Her white SUV was still blocking the drive. A police car pulled up, followed by a tow truck. Meredith, slumped on her porch steps, looking tear-streaked and defeated, pointed furiously at the lawn. The officer, a young man who looked like he'd seen too much, just shook his head slowly, took a statement from me about the blocked ambulance, and issued Meredith a citation for obstructing an emergency vehicle, a far more serious offense than any parking violation. The final gut punch for Meredith wasn't the citation or the cost of replacing her prize-winning sod, which would be immense. It was the moment the tow truck, unable to easily navigate the tight space because of her diagonal parking, had to slightly adjust its angle, causing its rear tire to inadvertently roll backward and sink deeper into the dirt ruts left by the ambulance. She let out a choked, desperate cry. The universe, it seemed, had decided that afternoon to enforce its own brand of property code. As I stood there, watching the police officer calmly explain to Meredith the difference between property rights and the right to life, I felt a surge of cold, hard justice. Prioritizing grass over a human heart? That kind of selfishness never wins. Sometimes you just have to drive right over the obstacle or the lawn to get to where you need to be. Life, in its messy, urgent reality, will always triumph over the perfect illusion of control. And that, I realized with a profound sigh of relief, was the most satisfying thing about this whole chaotic cinematic nightmare.